Hello and welcome to the CNBC TV 18 special. I'm Shereen, Bhan, and today we have a very special guest with us, the Economic Affairs Secretary Tarun Bajaj, who is going to talk to us on a whole host of issues, including that big meeting that the Prime Minister hosted yesterday, the virtual roundtable with 20 pension and sovereign wealth funds. Mr. Bajaj, it's a pleasure. Thanks very much for joining us here on CNBC TV 18. Let me start by asking you about that virtual roundtable that the Prime Minister chaired, sir. Some of the biggest pension and sovereign wealth funds in attendance. We heard from the Prime Minister making the pitch that if you want democracy, then India is the place to be. But what were the specific asks, if any, that the investors raised with the Prime Minister?
Shereen, it was a very interesting meeting, and we were prepared for the questions that you are mentioning to me, that the asks that they'll pick up. But the atmosphere in the virtual room was very, very positive. Each of the funds was trying to appreciate the various efforts taken by the government, especially during COVID times when governments tend to get bogged down by the health issues. But this government actually went ahead with a large number of reforms, especially on agriculture, labor, mining, coal, public sector enterprises. So that was all appreciated. One thing which came out as one of the asks, which one or two, I think, funds raised, was that they said that we want a continuous pipeline of assets, both on monetization as well as privatization, to be coming out in the market so that we can invest. We have plans to increase our investment in India, and we look at India as a very positive story. So this was the kind of thing that was there. There were, I think, no negative comments or issues that were raised. Each one of them was actually very keen to tell as to what he was doing in India.
Okay, that's good to hear, sir. Let me pick up on that point that one of the key asks that investors put on the table was for the government to articulate a clear pipeline of projects, of assets for monetization as well as privatization. What was the response? We are still awaiting clarity on the strategic disinvestment policy. When can we expect finality there? And what is the pipeline, sir, in terms of asset monetization? A long list has been prepared for a while now, but can you give us the sequence of what we should now expect on both these fronts?
Shereen, in fact, some of these things were actually explained to them in a little detail. For example, on the railways front, we told them that we have these trains which are coming out and on the PPP mode. Similarly, the railway stations, especially the Delhi and Mumbai, which are huge investments and looking for funds, is also out in the market. 6 airports, as you know, have come out, and another 6 plus 6 should be coming out in the next few months. Similarly, on the NHAI front, the next bundle of TOT is soon to be out in the market. The privatization of distribution companies and UTs is on the anvil, and the Ministry of Power has mentioned to us that in the next 6 to 8 months, it should reach finality. Similarly, both PGCIL and NHAI are working on InvITs, and these InvITs will again give opportunity to these funds to actually come and invest in those InvITs. And also this year, though there has been some delay in the disinvestment of CONCOR and BPCL for various reasons, but they are also there. And let me say that some of the funds are very keen on both these assets. You asked me a specific question as to when the policy will come out. Secretary Deepam gives us a message that it should be out very soon. There were certain issues raised by a few ministries, and they are trying to expand the scope of the policy, and hence it has taken some time, but we should have it soon. And I think in the coming financial year, we'll see a steady stream of assets coming out in the market, both on asset monetization as well as privatization.
That's important, sir. You've given us some indicative timeline. Since you specifically mentioned Container Corporation and BPCL and the challenges that both have encountered from the point of view of strategic disinvestment, are you still hopeful that either of these two or both could go through in this financial year?
Shereen, I'm not so bothered that it should reach finality on 31st March, on 10th of April. The whole point is that the scheme or the investment should meet its ends, and you would understand that this is perhaps the first time that after many years that the government is trying to privatize a big company. We have so far been able to get another public sector by a private sector, by another public sector company. But in this case, it will be privatized. So I think there have been a few issues on, for example, on the CONCOR and the land leasing issue, the BPCL, there was some demand by the potential investors to delay it because they were not able to travel to the country. So I think that's not something which bothers me as much as trying to go through the deal properly and absolutely with complete integrity.
Okay, so you're still hopeful, but you believe that 31st March need not be a race with that date, so to speak, as far as these two companies are concerned. So, you talked about TOT projects, you talked about some of the other infrastructure projects, and that was the pitch that the Prime Minister has made, and that is the pitch of the government, that the key to economic revival is going to be infrastructure spending, infrastructure projects getting off the ground. Can you give us a sense, as part of this NIP, sir, which are the projects that the government is going to focus on? Which are the shovel-ready projects that you are going to push forward? Also, these PDP cells have been set up to work with state governments. If you can give us clarity on what we should realistically expect in terms of the mega infra project takeoff.
Shereen, on the first thing I would say, personally from the Department of Economic Affairs, I'll be very happy if I get the money this year. So I'm very happy if the deal is done yesterday. But having said that, I'll stick to the point that I made earlier. And on your issue on the infra projects, I would say in the NIP pipeline, we are actually having a complete list of projects of each of the ministries having an outlay of more than 100 crores of rupees. Now, our emphasis is that all these projects should actually move forward, but we have been able to shortlist some very important projects, very large projects that have also faced some impediments, and we are dealing both with the states and central ministries to see that they are off the ground. As far as the numbers or the amount is concerned, I don't have the exact figure right now, but we have the figures in the NIP as to the amount that we are expecting to be spent this year. Let me say to you that there was some money which was given in the last stimulus that was announced by the finance minister a few days ago. And here from the Ministry of Finance, we have very clearly spelled out to all the ministries that if they can actually spend money on the ground, and actually spend money means that the brick mortar actually happens on the ground, we'll be ready to provide further money for that purpose. And there are some ministries who have come to us with that request, and we will actually be looking at that and providing money for them, even extra money in this very difficult year. So
this is over and above the additional 25,000 crore rupees that has already been provisioned?
Yes, Shereen. That's what I was saying.
So can you give me some indication of the kind of requests, the demands that have come in from various ministries, and what the additional allocation could be, sir?
Shereen, let's wait a little while. We are still examining that, but we've got these requests from, say, Housing Ministry. We've got it from some other ministries as well, defense production in the sense of domestic defense production. So we are having a look, and very soon we'll be able to come out to you in the open telling you what we have done.
Okay, so additional allocation for infra spending over and above the already additional provision of 25,000 crores, that is on the table as a possibility, is what you're telling me. But sir, since you brought up the issue of stimulus, and I know you cannot preempt what the government or the finance minister will announce, but let me ask you to give us some idea, some color on what the possibilities are. Is it a legitimate ask to expect cash in the hands of consumers to be given? Is that something that is at all under consideration? Is an urban guarantee employment scheme at all under consideration? I mean, if you can tell me what is actively being considered, what is still in the realm of possibility.
Shereen, I think you know it all. So what all you have said is under consideration, but I will not be able to second guess as to what actually will come out. So let's wait and watch. That's what I'll say on that.
Okay, how much longer do we have to wait and watch? The expectation was that perhaps this could be a pre-Diwali gift that the government would roll out. Is that a fair expectation?
I think the expectation is fine, but let's see. We are also looking at some macro numbers right now, and we'll take a decision as to when the next impetus is required. So let's wait and see. I will not like to raise your expectations by giving a particular date. It depends on a lot of other things. So let's wait and watch.
If I could read between the lines, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, sir, but given the fact that there seems to be at this point in time high-frequency indicators that are suggesting that green shoots are visible across a bunch of sectors, it is much more broad-based, the recovery that is currently underway. The hope is that this will be sustainable. Is the view within government that perhaps we should wait a little bit more to see when to roll out the stimulus? Maybe if this is pent-up demand and it starts to ebb, maybe the booster dose will be required later. Is that something that is being considered today?
Shereen, I think you are reading between the lines where nothing is written. So I will not like to say that that is what our thought process at the moment is. At the moment, we are looking at, actually what had happened was that we have received a number of suggestions from associations, all kinds of associations, and we are having a look, and we want to do it in one go rather than doing it in small little installments.
Okay.
So that is the only issue. Timing wise, yes, Diwali becomes a major thing that it is there, so we'll do it pre-Diwali or post-Diwali. But I think that is again not of so much of significance as a policy issue for us, whether it happens on 13th or it happens on 15th.
One last question on this, and then I promise I'll move to other issues. But on the stimulus, the previous package laid more emphasis and more weight on credit guarantees as opposed to perhaps some would say direct fiscal stimulus. Will that continue to be the leading even as far as the second package is concerned?
Okay, let me say this. There's been a lot of debate on the issue whether how much fiscal amount we gave in the hands of people or what is the guarantee that we gave. Let me also take you to the countries that gave a lot of fiscal stimulus to their people, but not necessarily it translated into higher demand and better GDP for them. The contraction for them was also, if not as much as India, but was almost equal to that of India. So the whole idea that we were looking at is, and it is not to say that we did not provide money in the hands of people. We have a large population that is very vulnerable, so free food, free pulses, cash was provided to them. And as all of you know, that cash actually went and stayed in the bank accounts. Out of about 30,000 crores, I think 19,000 crores or something, I may not be correct with my exact figures, continue to remain in the bank accounts. And now what we have noticed is the Jan Dhan accounts are a little more than 1 lakh crores, and they continue to be so for the last 3 or 4 months. So whenever you give cash at this point of time, it is not necessary that it will lead to demand. So you have to create structures or innovations that will help you in ensuring that the demand happens. So the LTC, which again drew a puzzle amongst the private sector especially,
yes.
something, an attempt where the government officers or the government officials were being promoted to spend money which was lying in their bank accounts also by giving them a small incentive in the form of using the LTC in cash rather than going to some place and then getting it reimbursed. So on the guarantees front, I would say that the whole idea was to put money in the hands of the companies so that they are able to restart when the economy is trying to get back on its rails. There is more demand, there is more need for production, more need of supply chains to function. It is at that stage that you need a lot of money. And I think giving doles directly from the government would not have been sufficient because the amount required would be huge in that case. So I think that was a good idea and that has actually worked. And if I may share with you that we have been receiving a lot of demands as to what we should do with the remaining 1 lakh crore of guarantee space that still remains in the sector that I won't call it the MSME, but the industry sector that was provided funds with.
You're absolutely right. There is that date has been extended now to the 30th of November, and you're saying that there is further headroom that will be utilized. I will discuss all of that and more with you, sir. This is a interesting, detailed conversation that we're having with the Economic Affairs Secretary. We'll take a break, but don't go anywhere. We're back with more on the macros after this break. With the Economic Affairs Secretary Tarun Bajaj. Mr. Bajaj, just before the break, you were talking about the credit guarantee scheme, which has now been extended till the 30th of November or till the time that the remainder of that guarantee amount is utilized, whichever is earlier. In the context of what we are seeing with the use up of that scheme, you said that there are specific demands that have come in. What could be the way forward now for that remainder 1 lakh crore, sir?
Shereen, again, I'll give you the stock answer that I've been giving you, is that we are actually looking at it. Some people are asking to include bigger companies, to extend it to companies that have still not taken loans, or business houses or small business that have not taken loans from the banks. So we are looking at what is feasible and what is doable within the 1 lakh crore approximately guarantee that is available to us. And I'm sure the Secretary from the Financial Services will soon unveil the plan. And we are committed to the fact that we would like to utilize this complete window of 3 lakh crore guarantee and provide funds to the industry to get them back on the economic rails.
Mr. Bajaj, if I could ask you about specific issues that were taken forward in the budget, and perhaps these were part of the conversations that came up with investors yesterday. You know, for instance, the income tax exemption for sovereign wealth funds. The Abu Dhabi Sovereign Wealth Fund is the first to get that 100% income tax exemption. Are there others that have applied for the exemption as well, sir? When can we expect more clarity on who is next?
Shereen, I think 2 of them have already been notified. And I'm sorry, I don't have the names, but another 3, 4 have already applied.
Okay.
And what we have done is that since there were a lot of issues that they were not able to understand, so the Department of Economic Affairs had reached out to these funds, requesting them to apply, and we had done a virtual conference with the investor, with the Department of Economic Affairs, the facilitator, and the Department of Revenue that is supposed to notify this, for them to sit down together to understand how and what are the conditions under which they would get. And I think that was taken with a lot of positivity yesterday also by the fund houses, who actually mentioned this as a very positive step and a proactive by the Government of India.
Are there any other specific tax-related exemptions that have been sought by the sovereign wealth funds, pension funds? Can we expect anything to be taken forward in the budget next year? I mean, the DDT abolition, for instance, has already happened. The income tax exemption has already happened in this budget. What should we expect going forward?
I think they had 2 or 3 things, and you mentioned that. One was the dividend distribution tax that has been taken care of. The other was this tax exemption that has also been taken care of to a large extent, and the notification will now happen as and when these fund houses apply. Then they had some issues with regard to the InvITs, and as we see that the InvITs have actually, their regulatory requirements are being tinkered a bit to provide flexibility. So they were also happy with that, and specifically they did not mention any other income tax related benefits that they required. They just asked that they need a hand holding in India from someone to take them around these issues which they face so that they are able to get a solution to them faster than what they are getting perhaps now.
Okay, let me ask you about the next set of measures that are expected, sir. The hope is that there will be more PLI schemes. Is there likely to be an umbrella PLI scheme, or are we likely to continue to see sectoral PLI schemes? And how soon should we expect this to happen? Also, phased manufacturing plan, is that on the anvil?
The PLI has already happened in, I think, 3 areas. One is mobile phones and components. The other is pharmaceuticals and also the medical equipment. We should be looking at another 7, 8, 10 sectors. The way the system functions in the government is that since they will be done by various ministries, they'll actually ultimately need to come to Ministry of Finance and to the cabinet separately. But there could be an umbrella announcement in terms of in principle decision being taken. So let's wait for that a little while. I think we should soon be getting to know whether it happens now or it happens in the budget or it happens a little later.
Okay,
but
so
discussions are in advanced stage.
Discussions are in advanced stage. You're saying it could happen earlier than the budget, perhaps in the budget, or maybe a little bit after that, but 7 to 10 sectors are currently being looked at. I also want to bring up the issue of beneficial ownership when it comes to China, sir, because, you know, in my last conversation with the DPIIT Secretary, he said that a lot of applications are currently pending approval because of the change in the FDI regulation. Now, is there any thinking or further clarity on whether a threshold is being considered or not when it comes to investments from China?
Shereen, I think the industry's DPIIT secretary would be better placed to mention that, because they have to take a decision based on the various inputs that have been given to them. But let me also say that the PMLA guidelines actually mention what a beneficial owner is. And in our foreign portfolio investment, actually we take the PMLA definition of the beneficial owner, and that is very clearly laid down depending on whether you're a company, you're a trust, you're an individual. Limits are laid down accordingly. So I think the industry, the DPIIT is perhaps looking at it and soon should be coming out with a clear definition of that.
Okay, a clear definition is expected from the DPIIT. Let me now ask you about what the expectation is in terms of growth or the decline in contraction, sir. Given where you see data today, do you feel that perhaps the expected 9.5% contraction, it could be lower than that? What are you working with at this point in time? And in terms of tax collections, we have seen, of course, GST collections picking up, crossing 1 lakh crore finally. But on the direct tax side, are you concerned?
Shereen, as it is very obvious that the indirect taxes will depend on the economy completely. So if the economy is looking up, we'll have an uptick in the indirect taxes, and that's what we are seeing in the GST. And GST, which came in the month of October, was related to September. So we should expect an equally good growth this month as well. On the direct taxes, as we know, the first quarter was a contraction, a huge contraction for the economy, and that will have an impact. So the impact on the direct taxes is bound to be more. But I think the industrial sector, the services sector itself is now saying that since the economy has started looking up in the recent months, and their expectation and our expectation is that this will continue in the coming months. We also might see better tax collections on the corporate tax as well. And the contraction has been mentioned at various levels by various rating agencies and the international organizations. I think my finance minister the other day mentioned that we might be almost at zero. But let's see. Let's see, because these are the first few months that we are seeing an uptick in the economy. Let's see how does it go and how does the second quarter results come out. They should be out very soon in terms of GDP growth, I think by middle of November. So that gives us a good idea, heads up of what is in store for us.
What is going to be the theme then, sir, going forward? Because the next big event, of course, is the union budget. In light of where we currently find ourselves dealing with the pandemic, as well as dealing with the opportunity that this global reshaping of supply chains is throwing up, what is going to be the theme, the emphasis as far as the budget is concerned?
Look, what happened peculiar in this particular financial year was that after the budget, we have been making some announcements which was triggered by COVID and was made, it was necessary for us to do to handle the situation that was arising on account of the health crisis. I'm hoping that by the end of the financial year, we would be looking at recovery phase, and the COVID also we should be getting some kind of a vaccine by that time or around that time. So all this should actually help us in repairing and recovery of the economy. And we would be looking at some more reforms in the budget as well. The process has just started, so we will be working on it and will have greater clarity once we have interactions with the various groups.
Mr. Bajaj, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you very much for joining us here for your first TV interview. We appreciate your time and thanks as always for speaking to us here on CNBC TV 18.
Thank you, Shereen. Pleasure.
With that, it is time for us to wrap up the State of the Economy. From all of us here, goodbye. Many thanks for watching.